everyone out there in the YouTube world. I'm back again with another deck tech video, but whoa, hey, different setup. Bam! I got a new tripod that I'm testing out, seeing how it works, doing deck techs a little bit differently, gonna see if it's any better or worse than how I had it before. So today's deck tech is kind of like a test run to see how it works. I'm kind of worried about the glare with this deck being double sleeved, but we'll have to see how it all works. So, with that in mind, what are we doing today? We're looking at this guy here, Nekusar, the Mindrazer. If you played EDH before, if you were around back when Commander 2013 was being sold, you'll know who Nekusar the Mindrazer is, right? If you haven't, he is a 5-mana 2/4, completely irrelevant. What is relevant, though, is at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Get you focused here. Whenever an opponent draws a card, he deals a damage to that player. So, realistically, this is a Wheel of Fortune style deck. We're looking to have players draw lots of cards, discard cards. It's mass chaos. A lot of EDH is, can I sculpt my hand to be exactly what I want so I can combo off, or if I can do the things that I want to do? This deck says, hey, I heard you like to draw cards, let's draw some cards, and just completely screw up exactly what you want to do. So let's move Nekusar out of here and go on to a little bit of the mana base here. We have 5 islands, all full arts, beautiful. We have 5 swamps, and we have 4 mountains. So a total of 14 basics of the deck. Pretty simple. On to some other general fixing. Evolving Wilds searches out any of our basics. Same thing, Grixis Panorama, except this one can tap for colorless, whereas the Evolving Wilds couldn't. Opal Palace taps for colorless, and for 1 tap we can add a mana of any color of our general's mana identity to our mana pool, and if it's spent on our commander, he enters battlefield with X +1/+1 counters, where X is the amount of times we've cast him out of the command zone. I'm not sure how much I like this in Nekusar. I put it in just because he is very hated, and people want him off the board, so why not make him a little bigger every time with Opal Palace? That was my thinking. We'll see how it goes. Rupture Spire. I'm not so sure how much I like Rupture Spire as a card, but I think we needed a little bit more fixing, and since we're not doing anything super fast, it seemed to be fine. So now we go on to my general 3-color fixing that I run most of every deck. We have the Temples of Malice, Deceit, and Epiphany. Enter battlefield tapped, we scry 1. We have the Bounce lands, the Rakdos Carnarium, Dimir Aqueduct, and Is It Boilerworks. These are nice just to be able to bounce back up things like Scrylands, like Pajuka Bog, things like that. Also tap for 2 colors is very nice. We also have the Buddy lands, Dragon Skull Summit, Drowned Catacombs, and if we can get there, Sulphur Falls. Generally coming into play untapped because we have Shock lands, which are coming up next in Blood Crypt, Water Grave, and Steam Vents. That and our base count being so high, they also come into play untapped. The Buddy lands, as mentioned before. Crumbling Necropolis enters battlefield tapped, but can tap for any one of our colors. Just again, another generally good mana fixer. And Command Tower as the best EDH mana fixer in the format. I mentioned before, Pajuka Bog, going on to our utility lands. Taps for black, enters battlefield tapped, but when it enters, we exile a graveyard. So if we're versing against graveyard-centric strategies, if people have put a lot of good stuff in the graveyard from our wheels, drop a Pajuka Bog, and they lose whatever they had milled. I'm going to move some of the lands out of here. Reliquary Tower, no maximum hand size. That's generally what we're only using this card for. It's nice that we can accrue a very large hand, and then with some of the wheels or windfalls, we can have people draw lots more cards than normal. Rogue's Passage. We run Dragon Mage and Whispering Madness in this deck, so that really determines, or it wants creatures to be unblocked. Rogue's Passage does that. Desolate Lighthouse. It's just ways for us to find more wheels. We can pay 3, tap it, draw a card, discard a card. Pretty simple. And finally, Temple of the False God, tapping for 2 colorless, as long as we control 5 or more lands. Budget Ancient Tomb, a lot of EDH decks run it, very good card. Now on to just some other general mana stuff. Soul Ring, obviously, taps for 2 colorless. Most every EDH deck at this point runs it. Wafer's Bauble, if you don't have green in your deck, and you need more ramp, consider this card, which essentially says it's a 2 mana colorless rampant growth. Awesome. Armillary Sphere, in a similar vein, except this brings 2 basics to our hand, which can increase our hand size for any windfalls we might want to cast. Generally speaking, gets more mana into our hands. 2 tap it, sacrifice it, find 2 basics, put it in our hand. Just generally a good ramp spell for non-green decks. Worn Power Stone, is our worst Soul Ring. Enters battlefield tapped. Taps for 2 colorless. Still pretty good. Darksteel Ingot as a mana fixer. It's nice as indestructible. Just another very good mana rock for non-green decks. And finally, Thran Dynamo. Taps for 3 colorless. Not much to really talk about here. So now we're going to go on to the extra draw cards of the deck. These are what really help push through some of the things we want to do, just basically allowing us to draw some more cards to find our wheels and windfalls. Howling Mine. It's a 2-mana artifact that allows us all to draw an extra card at our draw step, as long as it's untapped, which you don't see in the text box here, but that generally never is really relevant, so it doesn't really matter too much. Ooh, just shook the camera there. Anvil of Bogarden. 2 mana, each player skips their discard phase, so no maximum hand size. During each player's draw phase, they draw an additional card and then choose and discard a card. Just again, kind of like a Wheel of Fortune, but also kind of filtering through discarding cards as well. It's very nice. Temple Bell. 3 mana tap, each player draws a card. Very good. Also combos with Mind Over Matter, which we'll get to at the end of the video, but that is for last case emergencies when we have to win at a late point of the game. We're not doing that every time, so... But still, Temple Bell, very good card. Dictate of Crufix is a 3 mana enchantment with flash, and is essentially another Howling Mine effect. We all draw an additional card at our draw step, so... yeah, at the draw step. Now this next one is probably the most talked about, the most card that everyone says, I don't know what this does, what am I doing? Teferi's Puzzle Box. 4 mana, at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the cards in their hand on the bottom of their library in any order, then draws that many cards. Players first draw their card for turn before this goes off. Secondly, you can stack the triggers so that players draw off Nekusar first, draw for turn, and then Puzzle Box. So really, they're shuffling away an additional card, taking an additional point of damage from Nekusar. It's a very good card in general for Nekusar. Spiteful Visions is a 4 mana version of Nekusar. At the beginning of each player's draw step, they draw an additional card, and whenever a player draws a card, it deals a damage. Deals damage to us as well, but really it doesn't matter too much. We're just focused on having this deal damage to other players. Season, Perverter of Truth. It's a 5 mana 6/5. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. Assign him blood every turn, I'll take it. And the 6/5 body is very nice as well. He can get aggressive, he can hold down the fort a little bit, you know. And it's also, I like how it says loses 2 life and draws 2 cards, because off Nekusar they're losing 4 life instead of 2. Very nice. Well of Ideas, a new one I just added into the deck a while back, kind of. 6 mana enchantment, when it enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. Cool. At the beginning of each other player's draw step, they draw a additional card. and at our draw step, we draw 2 additional cards. Another very nice Howling Mine-esque effect. And the last one we have is a staple amongst Nekusar decks, Force Fruition. 6-mana enchantment, whenever opponent plays a spell, they draw 7 cards. It's amazingly powerful. Just being able to force our opponents to draw cards, even if we don't have Nekusar out, they're just drawing 7, having to discard down to their hand size. That if we have other draw punishers or discard punishers out, this card is just wonderful in Nekusar. Now we're getting to the wheels and windfalls of the deck. I've kind of combined them into one giant pile, so I'm just going to run through them in converted mana cost order. First off, Winds of Change is a 1-mana sorcery. Each player counts cards in their hand, shuffles them into their library, and then draws that many cards. Just, again, very nice windfall type of an effect. Wheel of Fate and Wheel of Fortune, just being able to, early on in the game, force our opponents to discard their hand, draw us 7 new cards. Obviously, Fortune is better than Fate, because Fate you have to really time it well, because of the suspend mechanic. Generally speaking, how I've played it is every time I have it, I just suspend it, see how it goes. You know, I play this more as like a chaos type deck, so I generally don't really time it all that well. So, but still, both very good cards for the deck. Speaking of Windfall, here's Windfall. 3-mana sorcery. Each player discards their hand, draws cards, equals greatest number of cards discarded this way. Helps when we have no maximum hand size. We have some very large hands. Just dealing a lot of damage based on our draw and discard punishers. So, very nice. New kid on the block, Dark Deal. Similar to Windfall or Wheel of Fortune. 3-mana sorcery. Each player discards all the cards in their hand, then draws cards -1, equal to the cards they discarded. It's a little worse for us because essentially we're 2 cards behind, right? Because we have to cast this out of our hand, and then it says -1. So it's a little bit worse for us, but it's still pretty nicely costed at 3. And we're really just focusing in on our opponents discarding and drawing, so it's fine. Jace's Archivist as our creature windfall. I do mean to get a Magus of the Wheel in the deck. I just haven't been able to find one yet, but do put that card into the deck. It's a 3-mana 2/2, I believe. You can pay 1 in a red, tap, and sacrifice it to Wheel of Fortune. So this one is pay a blue, tap, and you windfall, right? So you discard your hands, and then draw cards equal to the greatest number of cards discarded this way. So, pretty good. But still, Magus of the Wheel, very good as well. Molten Psyche, 3-mana sorcery. Each player shuffles the cards from their hand into their library and then draws that many cards. So windfall, or not windfall, Winds of Change. But with Metalcraft, if you control 3 more artifacts, it deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards that player has drawn this turn. Very important wording on this, just because if we've been wheeling or windfalling, and then we cast this card with Metalcraft, they're taking a lot more damage than what they would originally be, so very powerful spell. And the Metalcraft is very easy to get with this deck. Wheel and Deal. 4-mana instant, any number of target opponents each discard their hand and draw 7 cards, and we get the draw card. So it's a wheel for everyone else, a little bit of card draw for us. Whispering Madness. I mentioned this one earlier when we were at Rogue's Passage. It's a 4-mana sorcery. Each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards discarded this way. So it's a windfall with Cipher, though. So when we cast it, we can exile it and cipher it onto one of our creatures. And when that creature deals combat damage to a player, we get a free copy of the spell. So, when you have this on a Dragon Mage, you're having a good day and making everyone hate you. Memory Jar, 5-mana artifact. Tap and sacrifice it. Each player sets aside their hand. Face down, draw 7 cards. At the end of turn, they discard that new hand and pick up their old one. This is nice for being able to try and find more wheels, just to try and continue that flow of damage that we're trying to keep up. I'm tempted to put a Goblin Welder in the deck just because of recurring Memory Jar, but I don't think there's enough artifact synergies for us to support a Goblin Welder, so we'll have to see. I doubt I'm going to put him in here, but yeah, generally speaking, Goblin Welder and Memory Jar are two very good cards that work together. Incinerary Command. 5-mana sorcery that essentially just reads deal 4 damage to a player, and then each player discards all cards in their hand, then draws that many cards. We don't really care about the 2 damage to each creature or destroying a non-basic land, so there could be times when you want to use those other modes, but generally you're always wanting to use that last mode, and then some other mode, which generally is the 4 damage to the dome. Reforge the Soul, the budget version of Wheel of Fortune. 5-mana sorcery with Miracle of 2. Each player discards their hand and draws 7 new cards. So, Wheel of Fortune, but a little bit more expensive, a little cheaper with the Miracle. And last but not least, Time Reversal. It's a 5-mana sorcery. Each player shuffles their hand, graveyard, or shuffle their hand and graveyard into their library, and then draw 7 cards, and then you exile it. Just again, another nice roundabout way of getting more windfalls and such into the deck. So now we're going on to our discard punishers. There's only 5, but they are very powerful in the deck. First one, Bloodchief Ascension. For a single black, we get an enchantment, and at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, we get a quest counter. And if it has 3 or more quest counters, we can deal 2 damage to an opponent and gain 2 life if a graveyard is put into their graveyard. If a card is put into their graveyard from anywhere, we can have that trigger. So this is very easy to get 3 quest counters just basically because Nekusar says each turn lose 2 life for our opponents. So very powerful synergies. Waste Not. One of those cards, just like Teferi's Puzzle Box, where everyone doesn't know how many triggers are on the stack or what they're exactly getting off of this. Basically, it triggers for each time an opponent discards a card. If they discard a creature, we get a 2/2 black zombie. If they discard a land, we get 2 black. And if they discard a non-creature, non-land card, we draw a card. Insanely fun, just very confusing and hard to keep track of what are you exactly getting off of your Wheel of Fortunes and windfalls and such. 2 cards that basically say the same thing, Liliana's Caress and Megrim. Liliana's Caress is a little better just because it's 2 mana, but they essentially say the same thing. Whenever an opponent discards a card, they lose 2 life. Megrim does it in damage, Liliana's Caress does it in life loss. So, essentially the same thing. And the last one we have is Geth's Grimoire. 4-mana artifact, whenever an opponent discards a card, we draw a card. It's pretty simple. Pretty good. Next up, we have the Draw Punishers. I have these kind of clumped up into whether or not it says lose the life whenever they draw a card, or just dealing damage equal number of cards they have in hand. The first one up is Keteric's Parasite, or Keteric Parasite. So 1 mana, 1/1. If we control red permanent, and if an opponent draws a card, it deals damage to that player. So, just like Nekusar, very powerful if you have both of them on the field at the same time, because red permanent from Nekusar, and double the amount of damage you're dealing to players when they draw cards. Seems good. Sphinx's Tutelage. I wasn't exactly sure where to put this card. I feel like it's a draw punisher, like a draw punisher that triggers when we draw. But I'm also just testing this card out because I feel like it's really good in this type of a deck. Whenever we draw a card, an opponent discards the top 2 cards of their library, and if there are 2 non-land cards that share a color, repeat the process. Seems good. We're not really trying to mill our opponents out all that much, so that's why I'm still testing it out, seeing how it works with the deck. But so far, I kind of like it. Seems good. Underworld Dreams for 3 black. We get an enchantment. Whenever our opponent draws a card, it deals damage to them. Similarly, we have Fate Unraveler. 4 mana, 3/4. Whenever opponent draws a card, it deals a damage to that player. So, pretty simple stuff here. Psychosis Crawler, 5 mana for Star. Its power and toughness equals the number of cards in our hand. And whenever we draw a card, each opponent loses the life. I like it that it spreads the damage out a little bit more. And with our no maximum hand size, he can get pretty big pretty quickly. Stormbreath Dragon. One of my favorite cards from the Theros block. He's a 5 mana 4/4 flyer with haste and protection from white. And for 7 mana, he goes monstrous for 3, so becomes a 7/7 flyer. And when he becomes monstrous, it deals damage to each opponent equal number of cards in their hand. Very powerful. I like him a lot. Solid threat. And finally, Price of Knowledge. For 7 mana, we get a enchantment. Players have no maximum hand size. Awesome. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand. Very solid as well. Nice finisher. Just because if we can't keep windfalling and such, this is generally the card that's going to finish players off if it stays on the board. So, very nice. Up next we have 3 sweepers that I consider to be sweepers. I feel like most other people would as well. I don't know why I'm saying that. Cyclonic Rift. 2 mana instant, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, and overloads for 7s to return all the non-land permanents we don't control to their owner's hands. Awesome blue wrath. People hate it. I love it. It's amazing. Nevinral's Disc. 4 mana artifact, enters tapped. Pay 1, tap it, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Just a nice little reset button in case things get awry. And the last one that I feel like I want to cut for something else is Decree of Pain. 8 mana sorcery, destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. Cycles for 5 to give then all creatures -2/-2 until end of turn. Not sure how much I like this card. I haven't really cast it all that much and whenever I've played the deck or whenever I've tested it. So I'm not sure how it is. I'm probably going to replace it. If I had the resources and if my shop had it, I would have replaced it with Damnation in a heartbeat, but not there. So for now, just living with Decree of Pain. So we have a couple, 3 sort of like hand sculpting spells, trying to find wheels and such. Ponder, blue, sorcery, look at the top 3 cards for our library, put them back in any order. You may shuffle your library, draw a card. Pretty simple stuff. Similar vein, Brainstorm, single blue for an instant, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library. Kind of just setting up explosive turns, or at least trying to. And Faithless Looting. It's a 1 red sorcery, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, flashbacks for 3. Hopefully drawing up some relevant stuff, discarding some stuff that really not being able to cast this turn. Just trying to sift through your deck for the things that you need. Mainly wheels and windfalls. Onwards to the rest of our creatures. Goblin Electromancer, a Storm All-Star. Just in this deck, making it so our windfalls and such cost a little bit less to cast, so we can cast multiple per turn. Other than that, he's a solid 2 mana 2/2. You know, nice bear. Chasm Skulker, I love this guy in this deck. He's a 3 mana 1/1. Whenever we draw a card, we put a +1/+1 counter on him. And when he dies, we get X 1/1 blue island walking squid tokens, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on him. Becomes a very big threat very early on. I love this guy. Great card. Sire of Insanity and Sire of Stagnation as some big mid-rangey creatures that do cool stuff. Sire of Insanity is good when we have a good board presence and a good way of having players draw extra cards, because he makes us all discard our hands at each end step, which can be a little bit chaotic, and if we just play him out without thinking too much, it can backfire a little bit. And Sire of Stagnation as the new Consecrated Sphinx that people have been talking about, 6 mana 5/7. Devoid, whenever a land enters the battlefield under opponent's control, they exile top 2 cards of their library and we draw 2 cards. Trying them out, I played a game at my local store the other night, a few weeks back. Someone who was playing Nekusar and played this card. Seemed really good, so I made sure that he was in my list as well. Niv Mizzet, probably should have went into the draw punishers, but 6 mana 4/4 flyer, whenever we draw a card, it deals the damage to a creature or player, and we can tap him to draw a card. And finally, Dragon Mage for 7 mana, we get a 5/5 flyer. and whenever he deals combat damage to a player, each player discards their hand and draws 7 new cards. So Wheel of Fortune on a stick. And last but not least, we just have a couple more utility spells in the deck. Elixir of Immortality, just being able to shuffle back in the things that we wheel away. 2 mana tap, gain 5 life, shuffle it into your deck along with your graveyard. Pretty good. Tragic Slip as just a little bit more of fast, flexible removal. We have a lot of indestructible stuff between me and my brothers whenever we play. So just being able to give a creature -13/-13 seems pretty good. Chaos Warp. It's a 3-mana instant. Shuffle a permanent into their owner's library, and then they reveal the top card of their library. If it's a permanent, it goes on the battlefield. If not, it stays on top of the deck. Just a little bit more flexible removal. It's a little bit chaotic, so I kind of like it in this deck just because it fits with the theme. Swiftfoot Boots. Looking to add a Lightning Greaves to the deck as well. Just be able to make sure Nekusar is not getting targeted and such. 2 counters in Arcane Denial and Counterflux. Arcane Denial, 2 mana, counters a spell. Its controller may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, and we draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So that's pretty good. And Counterflux I just had lying about, and I wanted to play it just because it seemed like a good card. 3 mana, can't be countered by spells or abilities, counter a target spell you don't control, and overload it for 1 additional mana. Pretty cool. Have yet to cast it, but still seems like a good card. Propaganda. 3 mana enchantment, creature can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they want to attack with. I'm thinking about adding Crawl Space as well, just to go along with Propaganda. People generally don't like Nekusar, so we want to keep them off of us for as long as possible. Propaganda is one way, and I'm thinking Crawl Space might be the last. So we'll have to see. 2 Planeswalkers in Ob Nixilis Reignited and Nicol Bolas. I like Ob Nixilis just because he essentially says +1 Phyrexian Arena, -3 Murder. The -8 I wish had all players get the emblem, just because then it would just say you basically just win. But unfortunately it just targets 1 player. You can try and get political with it, but generally speaking it just says, okay, let's kill the Nekusar player now. Nicol Bolas, on the other hand, is the essential, non-creature permanent destruction machine gun of Grixis, right? +3 destroys any non-creature permanent. -2 can gain control of a creature. Not using that as much, but sometimes it's relevant in case someone has a really big thing that we want to take a hold of. -9 we're never really using. 7 damage, discarding 7 cards and sacrificing 7 permanents. That just makes an enemy very quickly. So, it also takes out a player of the game, which, it's not in the most fun way of taking them out either, so it's generally just always +3ing, just getting all of the value. And the last card of the deck, Mind Over Matter. Combos with Temple Bell. Let me see if I can find it really quick. But essentially what you do is tap Temple Bell to draw a card, and then with Mind Over Matter you discard a card, say the one you just drew off Temple Bell, to untap the Temple Bell. Tap it, draw a card, discard what you just drew, untap, continue the cycle. This is only in the last-minute efforts to win the game, or if a game's going on for too long and you just want it to be over with, you just combo out. It's a very, very simple combo. It's not the deck's main win condition, just because we have so many wheels and extra draw steps, things like that, that's generally how we're winning. Other than that, Mind Over Matter is a very good card overall. We don't need a combo with it. We can use it to control our opponent's creatures and things. We have extra cards to discard with it, so it doesn't really matter too much. The 4 blue can be a little bit hard to cast, but I feel like we have enough fixing in the deck to make sure that we're getting that. So, that was Nekusar, the Mindrazer. I hope you all enjoyed. If I make any changes to the deck, I'll make sure to make an update video to keep you guys informed about the changes I make, some of the things I might add or take out. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. It's a pretty standard Nekusar build. I realize that. It's just a fun way to build him. I know a lot of people like to play zombies with him, or Storm, and then the most obvious way to build him is like this, right? Wheels and windfalls and extra draws. So thank you all for watching again, and stay tuned for more deck techs. I have a couple opening videos of some Oath of the Gatewatch fat packs in a booster box. Also some Battle for Zendikar fat packs in a booster box that is very overdue to upload. So if you guys want to see that, let me know. And I will speak to you all soon. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.